Why bricks? I will ask the audience to reflect on their experience learning how to interact with AI. For sure, you came across one or another framework. Someone said RTF is the great, or if you are a PMI member, then PMI was publishing a document saying RTF and then create, 2 formulas. Or then you have all of those one shot, few shots, flipped interaction, chain of thought, tree of thought, etc. But when you start really looking to those, you understand that task is repeated always, role is repeated quite often, format is repeated quite often, context is repeated, style is repeated, etc. So why not to treat them as the building blocks, like the Lego model, that you can combine as you wish? So that's the first pillar. You can combine them as you wish to satisfy the need. But just combining them, so if you start building something, some construction, not yet understanding what do you want to get out of that, so you haven't thought, well, you will build something ugly. And in this case also, you build something that you give to the other party, so that the other party could do something in response. And here we go to the second pillar, which is a certain logic of enabling a colleague of yours. This time, your colleague is AI. So define what you want, equip AI, configure the output, and refine and reflect. When you go through that logic, then you can build something very meaningful out of those blocks. Because if you don't follow that logic, you could put those blocks together, not really understanding why do you need that. And that's one of the reasons, Misael, why some of colleagues are making monsters out of their prompts, because they think that the more I put there, the more impressive the prompt looks. I spent a lot of time writing that prompt, I should get a good answer. No.
Hi everyone, welcome to Inteligencia Colectiva, the space where you learn AI, show AI, and tell AI. I'm Misael Castro Rosas, your host for this episode, and today's episode is special. We will talk about modular prompting, a new way to talk with AI. This is a concept created by Igor Huhtonen, who will tell us how this method works in real life. Because most of us have been challenging with methods, frameworks, and formulas, but actually there is a simple way and flexible way to talk to AIs using this approach of modular building using bricks to talk with AI. And because the real breakthrough is not mastering the prompts, it is in mastering the thinking behind them. My guest today wrote one of the most clearest way, I would say, and the most practical pieces for this method when talking to AI. He's a person who has more than 32 years working at Nokia, someone with huge experience who have been working in different technological transformation, market intelligence lead for global service delivery, and someone passionate about translating strategy into action and championing AI adoption across project communities. Please know that Igor is joining to the podcast today as a private individual and PMI member. The views and opinions expressed are entirely his own and do not represent those of his employer. Please welcome from Munich, Germany, Igor Huhtonen. Igor, welcome to Inteligencia Colectiva.
Thanks a lot, Misael. I'm very happy to be here and glad to share my experience with your audience. I hope that it will be very valuable for them.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'm sure that we'll learn a lot. And I look forward to speaking and having this conversation with you. I would like you to tell us who is Igor Huhtonen and how did you engage with generative adoption initiatives at your organization?
Well, you've already mentioned that I spent 32 years working for Nokia. That's my only employer, and I enjoy working for my company, for this company. I started with, I'm a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering by my education. I started as an R&D engineer. I've done some years of that. And then I thought, well, I want to get closer to the action. And that's how my project management journey started. I got very excited about it. So I got my very first PMP certificate back in 2000. That was also the year when I became a PMI member, so a long lasting member of PMI, and a great supporter of that, I hope. And throughout those years, I was doing many things. I was doing value-based sales, client consulting. I was running a large program management office on a huge IT program. I was doing transformation for the last 10 years or so. I was doing transformation, different kind of transformation. I was also responsible for running transformation office, transformation project management office, and then digital transformation office. Now I'm more like more of an individual consultant, looking at the trends, what's happening outside of the organization, trying to translate that into what do we have to do to transform ourselves. And when I was running the digital transformation office, Gen AI was just picking up. And I like that a lot because that's democratized AI. You remember what was AI state before? That was mostly AML, different models. You have to dig into the technical details. You have to spend a lot of time educating yourself. But Gen AI with ChatGPT democratized that. You just open a browser, start typing something, and get the response. So I got so much on hook that I spent a lot of time educating myself, learning certain things, and then started spreading that knowledge also to my colleagues. And approximately a year ago, I had a discussion with PMI. I offered them this possibility, being a long-term PMI member, and they said that sounds very interesting because also PMI members want more and more of practical advice. And that fulfilled their needs. So that's how the PMI blog emerged. And then later I delivered the PMI webinar, and then I delivered yet another PMI blog. And I'm so grateful to PMI for letting this opportunity. And also I see that based on the comments that I'm getting, that it resonates with the community. And
Absolutely.
to me, that's the greatest reward. I went through quite a long professional path. I'm still doing that. And it's very pleasing to see that I can have something to give back to the community. Because I learned a lot from PMI myself. Now I think it's my turn to contribute back.
Awesome. That's inspiring. So you describe yourself as someone who translates strategy into actionable initiatives. And when you look at generative AI conversations today, especially among project managers and the community, what is the gap that you see between the strategy talk and what actually happens on the ground?
Well, there are two aspects to this. One is, you know, the saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't have culture that enables adoption, whatever you put on the strategy statement doesn't mean anything. And the second is, there is also a saying that the strategy is worth the paper on which it is printed, as long as you don't operationalize that. You don't convert that into what people are doing. Now, look at the strategy statements of quite many companies. They want to lead in the AI era, they want to embrace AI, but does their staff, do their team members embrace it? So as long as you do not turn that into action, into a wide adoption in your organization, your strategy will not materialize. And that's why I'm putting a lot of efforts helping colleagues. I'm also, through the PMI interaction, cooperation, sharing that knowledge, because I think that AI is not only, you see, a new technology. It will change our society and our work big time. So we have to be prepared for this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what is the primary challenge that you see PMs are facing today during this adoption?
Interesting question. It's very difficult to boil it down to one.
Right.
I think I would split that into two parts.
Okay.
One is that project managers have to learn how to interact with AI, and they have to change their mindset. AI is not yet another, advanced tool like you get in your Outlook or you get Microsoft Office software, etc. It's your collaboration partner. The second point is that, well, having been a project manager myself, having run big organizations like large program management office, I know how busy you are. From early morning to late evening, you're just doing stuff. You kind of understand that AI would most probably help you, but you don't have time to stop and start educating. That is the issue that quite many project managers are facing. It's like you are running next to the bicycle. You cannot find time to learn how to ride that bicycle, jump on it, and just go.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get it. I mean, the the way to see what AI can do for you is to be curious, to explore it, and experiment and interact with AI, and then you will see, wow, I can do many things, and I can be even more human now.
Yeah, and Michelle, just in addition to that, the other thing that we as individuals have to accept, and also our employers, our teams have to accept, that in the beginning, when you start learning something, your productivity, your efficiency might go down because you are using time to learn new ways of working now with AI. But then gradually, as you learn, as you get into that, your efficiency will improve. You have to have that patience to go through that. There is a so-called J-curve phenomenon that in the beginning, your efficiency drops, but then it's increasing a lot. But for busy project managers to find that time, it's difficult. And that's why I hope that project managers who are listening to your podcast, who are watching the webinar that I delivered, would learn faster way to improve their collaboration with AI. Because
Absolutely.
what I delivered in the webinar is based on my own experience. I was struggling a lot, learning how to interact that. I was hitting my head against the wall, trying to figure out, well, kind of, why doesn't AI give me what I want?
Right.
And some colleagues asked me, how long did it take to build that concept? And I said, well, putting things on slide took me 1 day, but getting to that concept took me 3/4 of a year. Through trial and error, through this,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is one a real proof what you can get out of AI when you really put all the efforts into it, and you can get a lot of fruitful and wonderful things. And this is a great proof. So we'll talk more about that, and let's start with what is not working. So in your work with PMs and beyond, so what are the most common prompting? Now let's talk a little bit more about prompting. So what are the most common prompting pitfalls you see project managers fall into when they start using Gen AI seriously? I mean, is the problem? I mean, I would like to say, or I don't know, the is the bigger problem baggy task, missing context, or jumping in without thinking first, for example?
You nailed the point. Think first from second is one of my favorite saying. Just opening whatever AI assistants you've got at your disposal, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and just start typing. That's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
If you was that from Alice in the Wonderland, if you don't know where you are going, any road would take you there.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So it's like thinking about what you think, and then you start prompting, right? Thinking
Yes,
about the thinking.
exactly.
That's the real magic. What's behind the prompt? Because sometimes from our subconscious, we just type in and ask for something, but we are not really conscious about where we're really asking in the prompt. So yeah, I like that. I like that part. So in your PMI blog that you wrote, that I actually found it interesting, and that's why we're having this conversation. You already mentioned think first, prompt second. So this is a deceptively simple line. Why do so many smart experienced PM skip the thinking step and go straight to typing just the prompt?
Because they're busy. Having been a project manager myself, I know you are so busy. You don't have sometimes time. You're like a squirrel in this vicious circle. You are running. So it really takes a lot of grit and determination to stop and start thinking. And that's also, when you think about ways to improve project managers, let's now forget about AI for a while. If you have a problem, if you have a crisis situation, what some quite often project managers do, they say, well, we need to run, we need to do something. But the smart way to approach that is you stop for a while and you think. You've got an emergency situation in your project, things are falling apart. Instead of just putting people in there and just do something, you try to analyze. And the same approach happens with AI. If you are very busy, you try something, you are not satisfied with the answer, you drop the whole thing. So you don't jump on the bike, you keep running next to the bike.
Yeah.
So that is something. It's about mental shift, and it's about the same things that you experience even without AI.
Definitely. I mean, and I would say that it's quite complicated, right? Because sometimes you are in the rush, you are pushed to meet or to reach the deadlines, or maybe you have an unplanned event, and you have to act and do something quickly and fast. And most of the time, because we have too many experience, or we know how things are done, and maybe sometimes we do it from the subconscious. And maybe we don't, as you said, we don't stop for a moment and say, okay, let me think, let me do a step back, and let's explore what are the alternatives that we can leverage. And if you use the AI as your thinking partner, probably you can say, hey, here's the situation, I have this idea, give me different angles, no, for this problem. And probably you can get more ideas how to tackle the problem,
That's
right?
exactly how you use AI. And that actually reminds about one thing in relation to the strategy. Being a Gen AI enthusiast, I read a lot. Articles, books about AI, I follow what's happening. And I can't recall who was the one giving that interview. And he said there that quite many companies put AI in their strategies, but they don't allow their troops, their staff, to allocate time to experiment with AI, to learn how to deal with AI. And if you don't allow your organization, your staff, to devote that time, forget about AI. And that's also something that we in project management communities face a lot. We are so dedicated to delivering the value to our customers that we are getting ourselves in this vicious circle. We cannot stop. We can't allocate time to learn something, to improve our way of working. So that requires determination.
Exactly. Yeah, you get the point. So another pitfall I see is the opposite extreme. I mean, for those who have time, for those who spend time using AI, and they build such as big prompts, they overload the prompts with, I would say, if we use your metaphor, they put a lot of bricks in the wall, no? A lot of bricks in the prompt. So sometimes you say, "Oh, I will get a precise and quality output because I'm putting a lot of bricks or a lot of information into the prompt." So what are this? I mean, and probably maybe with 1, 2, 3 blocks, you can get better outcomes, right? So tell us what are the signals that you say, okay, I'm doing something wrong here, and then I should make it simpler and quick and fast. Maybe I will get better results.
Well, I think it's the right time now to talk a bit more about the cornerstones of the modular prompting concept. So I suppose that our colleagues in the audience understood that the modules, that you could treat different parts of the prompt as modules like Lego blocks you could put together and build prompts flexibly for your needs, is one of the cornerstones. But there is another cornerstone. That's very important. That requires a mind shift, and that's something that I described in my webinar. And that was really for me the eureka moment that helped me conceptualize this approach. AI is not yet another tool. AI is much bigger. It's really something that is changing our world, our lives, professional, personal lives, etc. So you cannot treat that as just another piece of software. And then, if you start thinking about your project team, when you want your project team members to do something, how would you approach that? You would explain, well, look, I want you to, for example, develop that document or do that report or build that wall or something. But that's not where you stop. You have to also explain why, provide the necessary information. Like if you want a team member to build a wall, you need to say from which material, what's the height, what's the width, in which time frame you are building that, why is that wall built, etc. So you have to equip your colleague. Now this colleague is AI, so that's the second step. Then you have to also explain what do you want to get out of that. So I want the following output. And then with human colleagues, especially with the experienced ones, you trust that they know what to do, so that's it. But with AI, you also need to validate, has AI provided you with reliable output? So there's the fourth step, reflect and refine. And that's the process that you would use with a human team member and you would use with an AI team member, if you wish. So that's the very important thing that helps you switch to a different mode of interacting with it. So to get into this collaboration mode. And when you get into this understanding that you have to treat AI as your colleague, then you could make the bridge to this another issue that you've outlined. So why some AI users are just putting things together and making very complex constructions. They want to show that, yes, they can use different things, but now put yourself in the shoes of the colleague, whether human colleague or AI colleague, that has to do that. If you overload with instructions, details, etc., will that person or will AI be able to understand what you want?
Yeah. but it happens. Honest speaking,
Oh,
I mean, that has
hello.
happened to me. Honest speaking, I put, because at prompting has evolved, right? The way you prompted AI in 2023, 2024, and the way you prompt AI today, it's totally different. AI models are smarter and so on. But sometimes we still do that mistake that we provide too much information, and sometimes, as you said, we are not clear enough, and we get AI confused.
Yes, yes. But you will also get a human colleague confused if you are putting too much information to a human colleague. Let's say you want a human colleague to prepare a report, and there
Right.
are some underlying reports.
Yeah.
The good habit is that you look at those underlying reports and you select number 1, number 2, number 7, number 12. If only those 4, and say, well, those are selected reports. Now I want you to go through those and build me a summary. That's the good way of delegating. Now, the bad way of delegating is take all of that file, throw over to the desk of that colleague and say, well, figure out yourself.
Yeah.
If you have not provided enough instructions, if you haven't enabled your colleague, you get garbage as the output.
Absolutely. And we will talk more about that in deep later. But that is the beauty of your method, and that is why it called my attention
Mhm.
when I read your article and say, I think we have to go deeper and get the great things from this method. So that is why I find it very useful. So um, in your LinkedIn, you and I had some interactions in LinkedIn when I did a
Mhm.
post, and you said that the breakthrough is when you stop treating AI as a extremely capable tool and start using as a collaborative partner. Walk us through that moment and what experience took you there and to that mindset.
Well, that was my interaction with it because when that thing emerged, there were so many frameworks, techniques that were popping up. And of course, I wanted to learn all of those. I was learning
Right.
them, I was trying them, and then I was kind of catching myself, seeing that okay, I have used a technique, I have provided some information, and now what? Well, I'm getting an answer that I'm not happy with. Now what? And then you try to retype the prompts that you used in the beginning. You get maybe a bit of a different answer, but you're not getting a breakthrough because you were kind of, I'm talking about myself, I was kind of the victim of trying to follow those techniques or the frameworks or the formulas. I was kind of bootstrapped by them. And then I was thinking there must be an easier way to do this. And that easier way came to me, the understanding of that, when I started thinking about this, okay, if that were my colleague, how would I explain that to the colleague? And then you gradually get to this understanding that actually there is a certain logic. Actually, as a project manager or as a line manager, I'm having the skill. Actually, I'm telling my colleagues that even if you have never interacted with AI, if you are a line manager or if you're a project manager, you already know how to do that. It's the art of delegation. You just don't yet understand that the art of delegation is something you could easily apply to AI. It's like you jump on the bicycle, you can ride that bicycle because you know how to ride the bicycle, you just didn't realize it. So
You
that was
know,
the breakthrough.
it's quite interesting. You said the art of delegation, and that uh, I mean, I had a flashback about the book, The Art of the War, a
Mhm.
Chinese book, an old millennial Chinese book, and they said that when the orders are not followed, the general is the one who has the problem.
Yes.
So the same happens here. I mean, if we do the orders to the AI and AI is not taking the orders from us, it's because we are not giving the orders in the appropriate way.
Exactly. Exactly. So
So
you see, when you apply your general understanding of how do we do our things, how do we do business, how do we do projects, to your
right.
interaction with AI, then you start getting new perspectives.
Absolutely.
But as long as you think, how do I type that prompt? You kind of you are stuck in that. You are stuck in those details, and that's why the modular prompting concept breaks free from those techniques, formulas, etc. It helps you to just understand. Well, that's how I enable my colleague, AI in
Yeah.
this case. Those are the building blocks I could use. Like, and everyone likes those little bricks that we could put together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. So you then said you then said something that I want every PM leader in our audience to hear. As PM or leaders of humans, we already have the skills to solve these problems. And you said it is about reapplying leadership and governance in a new way. Could you please unpack that for us and why PMs uniquely positioned to work with AI as well?
Because of the skill of delegating. You as a project manager, you have to delegate and communicate a lot. And when you know how to delegate, you have to take the big scope, chop that into pieces. So you develop a work breakdown structure, and then you allocate those pieces to the team members who are well positioned, have the right skills to do certain things. And then you observe how they are doing that, and you communicate, you explain a lot. So why would your interaction with AI be different from that? What do you want to achieve? That's your scope, your goal. You turn that into scope. You break it down into some elements of the work breakdown structure. Let's say we want to, I don't know, write a status report together with AI, right? You break that down into certain steps. So I, as human, collect the data, then I give the data to AI. I want AI to process that data. Great. Prepare that report. And we're getting to this task. So I do certain part myself, and then I delegate that task to AI to do that. How do I do that?
Absolutely.
I need to explain this, I need to provide the task, etc. And then we are in this normal process of delegating. Explain what you want, equip AI or your colleague, then explain what you want to get back, and then supervise that.
Exactly.
That's project managers are well positioned. They not necessarily understand.
So I think we are in good position, right?
Yes.
I mean, because that is one thing that I think most of us are good at.
Exactly.
So now let's get down to how building blocks framework works. And I would like you to describe the two pillars that you mentioned in the block, the architecture and the guidance. So take us through them. First, the modular bricks on one side and the four-step workflow on the other side. Why both? Why not just bricks or just a workflow?
Right. That's a very fresh way to approach this. So let me elaborate on it. Why bricks? I will ask the audience to reflect on their experience learning how to interact with AI. For sure, you came across one or another framework. Someone said RTF is the great, or if you are a PMI member, then PMI was publishing a document saying RTF and then create. Two formulas. Or then you have all of those one shot, few shots, flipped interaction, chain of thought, tree of thought, etc. But when you start really looking to those, you understand that task is repeated always. Role is repeated quite often. Format is repeated quite often. Context is repeated. Style is repeated, etc. So why not to treat them as the building blocks, like the Lego model, that you can combine as you wish? So that's the first pillar. You can combine them as you wish to satisfy the need. But just combining them, so if you start building something, some construction, not yet understanding what do you want to get out of that, so you haven't thought, well, you will build something ugly. And in this case also, you build something that you give to the other party, so that the other party could do something in response. And here we go to the second pillar, which is a certain logic of enabling a colleague of yours. This time, your colleague is AI. So define what you want, equip AI, configure the output, and refine and reflect. When you go through that logic, then you can build something very meaningful out of those blocks. Because if you don't follow that logic, you could put those blocks together, not really understanding why do you need that. And that's one of the reasons, Misael, why some of colleagues are making monsters out of their prompts. Because they think that the more I put there, the more impressive the prompt looks. I spent a lot of time writing that prompt, I should get a good answer. No. If you haven't thought first, what do you want to get out of that? You'll be getting very poor outcome. Sometimes, and I'm telling that to my colleagues, sometimes a task alone is sufficient. Or a task and an input, or a task and the context. And you could approach prompting from two angles with this concept. You could either put a very simple prompt like, here's the context, very brief, and this is what I want you to do. Then depending on the answer, you start adding some more blocks and you kind of try to elaborate on that. So you gradually improve the level of details. Or when you are very clear about what you want to get, you write a bit of a more complex prompt. But even after that, when you got the response, you still need to do some fine-tuning.
Absolutely. So what I understand, and for our audience who are watching this podcast, means that when talking to AI, instead of thinking a formula, instead of thinking prompt patterns, or instead of thinking of those complex frameworks that you see on social media, that it's everywhere. Everyone has his own frameworks. Sometimes you get lost. So the best way to do it is, as you said, by using modular construction, using bricks, and using the pieces that you need to talk to AI.
Yes.
I like to, I'm not sure if you are able to, or if you allow me to do so, but I think it will be useful also if we share that framework with our audience, so that they can also get familiar with how it works, how it's constructed. If you allow me to do so, then I'll share that also with our audience so they can get more context of how our conversation is working. Probably at the very end, we will have more about that in the closing. But I think that's very helpful also for our audience to get more context for how this breaks works.
Yeah, please feel free.
Thank you.
The more I can help the community, the better.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Igor. So the step four, the 4-step flow, and you said you define what you want, you equip AI, you customize the output, and reflect and refine. And honest speaking, and that has happened to me when I talk to AI, I just ask for something, and this is how I want it. These are the constraints. But very, very rarely I ask AI to reflect and refine. And why is reflect and refine the step that separates the good prompters from the great ones?
Well, we all know that AI is a sycophant. And I also told that in my webinar that in a very simplistic form, AI has two primary targets. Target number one is to provide the outputs that the human user has requested. And target number two is to please the human user. And that pleasing the human user in conflicting situations runs over. And if AI doesn't know something, LLM was not trained on some data, it starts inventing things.
Yeah.
In certain very critical areas, like something related to legal things or something related to constructural things with our customers, etc., it's vital for us to ensure that we are not putting anything like references to some laws which are not true, or reference to some cases, or when we communicate to our customer, this is not based on what we have achieved in the project. The more you have at stake, the more you have to really control whether or not AI provides you with a good output. And there, it's not only reflect and refine. Yes, you could ask AI to explain why it's provided something, and reading through it, you would be able to spot whether or not it's confident or not. You could ask it to provide you references if it searches for some documents, or do the self-reflection. But also the way how you give it a task is important. If you haven't provided sufficient amount of context, if your context definition is vague, if you write in a very clumsy way, well, how would your colleague understand what you want? So when AI gives you something which is strange, you know where to find the responsible for one. You go to the mirror and look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So, and actually, Anna Eccles, she's a good friend of mine. She got beautiful details of this part of your framework.
Mm-hmm.
She said like self-reflection as a brick when more deep is needed, and I think it's very very interesting. So, what is the difference between my goal and AI's goal in plain English?
Well, in plain English, you can have a certain goal that you explain to AI, like let's make a very hypothetical scenario. As a project manager, I want to talk to the project sponsors, and I want to impress them that I'm a very knowledgeable project manager. So that might be my goal. So I would say, AI, I want to write such an email that I will impress my stakeholders. That's my goal. But now your goal is to write a report which is only 3 paragraphs, but in those 3 paragraphs, important things really shine. So you see, because AI is helping me to achieve my goal, but AI should not be shining there in front of the stakeholders, right? I on purpose took this very exaggerated example so that you see. You don't necessarily need to put them together in the same prompt. You would need to think, do I need to explain what I want to achieve, or would I rather tell AI what AI needs to achieve? It's really like, again, going to that analogy of enabling a colleague of yours. Depending on the knowledge of that colleague, depending on the kind of degree of independence of that colleague, you would either explain, look, this is what you have to achieve, maybe even provide more instructions, or you would say, well, do it in whichever way you want, but that's my goal, and achieve that. And actually now with the front models, you get more and more in this kind of interaction that you explain your goal, and then AI just goes and does that thing. So you control that less. And you also, Misael, you mentioned that in the beginning, we had to provide a lot of instructions to AI because those models were less capable, more primitive. Now AI is getting more and more advanced. And sometimes you actually notice that's my own experience with the latest models, they are providing you just too much. You ask about something, and then instead of getting that view of text, you are getting a long page. So in the past, I was not using length and detail too much. But now I'm noticing that more and more I'm telling AI, well, provide me a concise summary. I don't want all of that, anxious parade of your knowledge that you want to feed to me.
Yeah. So, Igor, I'm curious, and I wonder if AI models are, you already mentioned that AI models are evolving constantly, right? And we talked about it before. So, like, for example, new reasoning models, agents, multimodal, everything. So, does a framework like yours become more important or less important as these models get smarter?
You might find my answer a bit strange, controversial, but I would say that some parts of this kind of box of bricks becomes more important as models become more advanced, and some become less important. Take style and tone. In the past, you really had to define the style and tone. Now models infer more that, okay, human wants this, so most of that would be the right tone. But this thing about the length, with the new models, they tend to provide you with lots of outputs. So you have to specify more and more. No, I don't want your story. I want just some bullet points or summary, etc. Which is a bit surprising. More and more, you have to explain why do you want to have certain things done. So you see, your team member is becoming more knowledgeable, more capable. So you don't need to provide too much of that thing, but you really need to explain what do you want to achieve from that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you have heard about the term context engineering, right?
Yes.
And not also the context, but also the input, right? The input that you give to the AI model. And there is another component that I know it's I'm not sure. Probably there are many terms, but it's Combalt. The Combalt is like about yourself, your beliefs, your values, your principles, and you build like all about me, right? And when you give all this knowledge to the AI, then the AI becomes your mirror, right? So
Yes.
of course, when you get to that point, you will need less bricks, right?
Yes. The more a
Probably,
colleague of yours knows about the thing, the better.
exactly. So probably, right? And in one of the webinars, I was asked about the privacy.
Mm-hmm.
I know in Europe, GDPR and many other AI Act and other policies are very strict, and I wonder if there is a workaround to overcome all this without compromising your privacy.
Well, with the caveat that I'm not an expert on the privacy matters, I can also say that I think we Europeans were overdoing that. The other nations that are competing with us in that AI domain, they are less strict and they are more advanced. So from that perspective, we can loosen our requirements. And also, that was like half a year ago, the European Union's AI Act was launched, and then I think a month or a couple of months after that, called back because they understood that it was just too strict.
Right.
Of course, dealing with certain type of data is extremely important. and data leakage is common, there you have to use your judgment. Which data would you give to which AI assistants? And I was attending one very interesting event here in Germany, where we had a bright presentation by a person from the UK who is running a company that are helping companies monitor this kind of AI traffic.
Oh, okay.
And he was saying, he was putting some numbers, I can't recall the numbers, but it was really astonishingly high. The percentage of people that they've noticed were providing confidential company data to external AI assistants, just taking some client data, putting into ChatGPT, even when they had something in-house approved for the usage. So what can I say? You can make something bulletproof, foolproof, but some colleagues are trying to even navigate around that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a challenge. Another thing, I was talking to a friend about it, and actually, and that is the beauty of this community, right? Of Inteligencia Colectiva, or collective intelligence, is that another friend of mine, he told me that one way to overcome that part could be to anonymize the person, or just create an avatar, but not giving kind of personal identity. So maybe you create an avatar, you anonymize the information, and then if AI can take that person, well, it can be an avatar, but not your names, not your credentials, not your identity.
Yeah.
So
actually, you could even use modular prompting concept for that purpose. You could actually code certain things there. Let's say you are working on a project, and you and your colleagues are using AI a lot. And in your prompting, you have to provide details about your project.
exactly.
You can actually write the key things about your project. That would be a context block. You put that into the SharePoint for the usage of all the team, and they can reuse that block. And you could do the same for your audience or some personas. You would say, well, I would like AI you to take the perspective of this persona, and that's the description of that persona, and you could reuse that. In my second block, where I was elaborating on the questions that left unanswered in the webinar, I was introducing this thought. Well, that's a short, of course, article. I was not able to go into the details, but that's the next thing in interacting with AI. And also, we are hearing more and more about skills. What is a skill? That is a set of instructions to AI. And in my modular prompting 2.0 concept, I've added that block to the collection of the blocks. I have instructions there. A task is not sufficient in certain instances when you just cannot say something with one sentence. You would say, AI, first you do this, then you do this, and then depending on the outcome of that, you do either this or this. That's what you could call a skill.
Exactly.
And then it's the modularity. It's the second grade of modularity, because you put those modules. It's you have your own kind of box with the bricks, but you put that box to the collective usage of the whole team. It's kind of you are in the kindergarten. You share your toys with the rest.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think, I mean, I personally can tell you that I have been using Cloud for over a couple of months, and I'm working a lot on the skills part. And I will say, I mean, now that you mentioned that, I'll say that it makes sense to leverage those bricks and use it into my skills. So if anyone can reuse or want to reuse my skills, they can connect to my skills and they reuse it. So you have the brick, you can reuse that brick. So that's great.
Or
So
you see, they can kind of, in a way, clone you. Let's assume you are an important customer and there is a big project team working for you. And you have a certain way to make decisions, certain way to process information. If that project team that works with you can spot this behavior and can code it, they would say, well, that's our audience. Our audience is Misael. Misael is a very important stakeholder of our project. And that's the way how he makes decisions. That's the way how he processes information. He wants to cut the crap. He wants to get down to the point. When they provide that instruction to AI, AI understands, that's the audience. And AI would automatically then process the output in such a way that it's then easily digestible by you.
awesome. Now tell us about the PM Buddy X initiative. I know it's an initiative to promote AI usage and upskills your PMI community. What is PM Buddy X, and what have you actually? What have you actually seen work?
Well, PMBuddyX is the initiative that we are running in our project management community in the company that was presented at the PMI Council. So that information is public, and I can disclose some of that. Approximately a year ago, we realized that we need to boost the usage of AI. We need to help our fellow project managers improve their skills. So we then formed a small team, and I'm a contributor in that team. And we decided that we need to create a prompt library. There are several components of that PMBuddyX initiative, but prompt library is one of those, and I'm contributing a lot to it. And we understood that, just writing some prompts into a prompt library by yourself.
Right.
Or there might be colleagues who have not so much of project management experience. There might be colleagues like I who used to do project management actively, but now that those skills are getting rusty. So we took the approach of, first of all, gamification. So we said, well, that must be fun. If you are not getting fun, why would you, as a busy project manager, allocate your time? So that was the first element. And the second element, we said, we don't want to write those prompts ourselves. Although I can do that based on my past experience as a project manager, but I don't know what are the issues that project managers face right now. So we then decided that we have to solicit the input from those project managers as much as possible. We want to understand how they are using AI in their work. And those two elements help us popularize it big time. I prepared some statistics. I could share those statistics with you.
Thank you.
We ran that last autumn. Then, of course, as that is a gamification exercise, we announced some prizes. So there was a ceremony, and most active prompters, most quality prompts got rewards. We had something like a dozen of different rewards. Colleagues were so happy. Exactly, colleagues were so happy. So we had participants from more than 60 countries.
Wow.
More than 700 participants. They submitted more than 400 prompt suggestions for the prompt library. Unfortunately, we had to cut roughly half of that. So a bit more than 200 prompts were accepted into our project library. But can you imagine 200 prompts? So when we started that exercise together with the core team, we thought, we'll get maybe some tens of prompts, so we will easily process them. But when we were kind of hit with that avalanche of prompts, we were completely snowed under. We were burning midnight oil, processing them, doing some weekend work, etc. We were very surprised in a positive way with the enthusiasm that we saw in the community. Because when you reach out, here's the trick. When you don't write something yourself and then you say, well, I have so many years of experience, I tell you how to do things. They will look at that and say, well, go away. But when you reach out to project managers and you say, dear project managers, I want to hear how you are using AI. Tell it to us, we'll help you popularize that to our community of project managers. And we were so pleased with the quality of topics that, some prompts were maybe not that well written, well formulated, and we were prepared a certain form that was following the modular prompting logic to help our colleagues. Still, some were kind of overly complex or not very well defined, but still we got so much insights. And now what we are also doing, we are picking really the best of breed from those, and we are generalizing them. We're saying, well, it's obvious that you wrote that for your project, which is great. But if we wanted to make that reusable, we then put some placeholders instead of, well, certain technology, we'll put a placeholder, put technology, or instead of certain customer, you put a name of that customer, etc., etc. And I could also tell you some statistics fresh from the oven. I was just presenting that to my colleagues yesterday. We now selected the best of breed, like 30 plus prompts. We will still continue. The interesting fact is we are categorizing them into the performance domains. So PMI performance domains, like you will have in the PMBOK. The one which is leading, so the most prompts are falling into the governance domain, where change control is really the most commonly used, and decision support. And then you have things like lessons learned, escalation management, etc. The second comes the stakeholder performance domain, with the stakeholder communication being the top subcategory, subdomain, and then stakeholder engagement. So you see, that gives you a good understanding of what are the topics that our project managers are using AI for. Stakeholder communication is leading, of course, because we do projects for our stakeholders. We have to communicate, and generative AI really excels in those tasks, or stakeholder engagement, or decision support, or change control. And then domains that require more skills, more capabilities of AI, like scope management, schedule management, they don't have too many prompts. Because there you really need to understand what are the capabilities of AI. Can it build a Gantt chart? Or can it analyze your very complex financial table of your project, convert that into some insights? And they will for sure improve as the capabilities of AI are improving. Of course, also you have to work on providing the data in the right way, educating AI how to do things. So stakeholder communication is easy because there it's about, well, write an email to our stakeholder explaining this and that, or write a status report for me. Yeah, of course, natural. But there, when we go into the domains of scope, schedule, cost, etc., there you have to equip AI with more capabilities. It's not only the model, it's the model and the skills, the capabilities that the model has.
Oh, this happened within your organization, right?
Yes.
Wow. So I am PMI Infinity Pro Test volunteer, and I contributed with the release 2.0, and I ran a lot of test cases, and probably more than 150 test cases, and actually I built my prompt library for that project. But it was a different perspective, because at that moment it was only based on the all performance domains: project management, program management, portfolio management. And based on the PM booked performance domain, PM book 7 at that time. And we did it from a different perspective because we wanted to improve the quality and precision of the model, right, of PMI Infinity. So at that moment, it was only to run the test and you use your own personal experience and based on your context. But having this broad view and in real world life, see what are the pain points that they are actually having and seeing, I mean, what they use AI most for. I mean, that's a totally different angle. And that gives you, of course, you can take better decisions for how to lead or maybe where PMs really need more support. And having that library, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's very interesting. And you said that will be published also for with PMI, or it will be only internal?
No, it's our, of course, it's our internal thing. That would not be shared with PMI for various reasons.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Also, you mentioned one word about struggling with certain things, and the other angle that this exercise provided to us was to see what are the aspects of collaboration with AI that our project managers were having some difficulties in. And I could just go very briefly through that because we observed certain patterns in the prompts, in the way how those were written. And so then I was writing some short articles like posts to explain how to improve the interaction. The first common issue that we saw was about understanding AI's capabilities. So you need to understand what is a large language model, that it can do only certain things. Some prompts proposed by project managers were kind of saying, well, I want UAI to go to all the possible tools that we use, put all the possible input from that and prepare the whatever project plan for me or status report for me. It cannot do that. It's the same. So referring back to what we discussed in the beginning, you have to think about AI as a colleague of yours. Would you give that task to a colleague? You would verify, okay, can you do this? Yes, then I will give that task to you. Can you do miracles? No, okay, well, then I wouldn't ask you to do miracles. So that was point number one. The second was about this think first, prompt second. Quite many prompts were, too messy, too disorganized. You look at that and you try to understand, okay, what do you want to achieve?
Exactly.
If you cannot articulate properly what do you want to achieve, why to write a prompt? Then the third category was about the overall prompt hygiene, if I could say so. How is it structured? How is it written? Lots of grammar errors, etc. And then you would ask a question. Okay, if you were to provide this prompt or this text to a colleague of yours, would you do it? So you have to have certain respect. You wouldn't send that poorly formulated email with lots of grammatical errors to a colleague of yours. You would say, no, I would need to do something. But why do you think AI is different? Because AI is kind of smart enough. If you do a lot of grammatical errors. So that was number 3. Number 4 was keep it simple. We already discussed with you. You asked me, well, why some colleagues write overly complex prompts? Well,
yes.
I have the same question, why? Sometimes just providing a task and the context is sufficient. Maybe something else. And the last one was reusable prompts. So of course, colleagues, we reached out to colleagues saying, well, give us your best prompts. And some of the prompts were so specific. But then you reach back to a colleague, you say, well, you understand that you are submitting your prompt for the prompt library. You want other colleagues to also get benefit from it. Could you try to somehow make it simpler, make it more universal, etc.? So again, you think about the community. It's kind of, I will give something to the community, they will figure out. You are busy project managers, they are busy project managers. Do they have time to read through that and try to figure out, well, how to deal with it? So you see, contributing to a community is also an important task, and you have to think about the community. So those were the interesting findings. I wrote 5 posts about that to help colleagues understand better. So,
well, honestly speaking, I have had other colleagues, PMP also, who work in a very long story bank in Peru, and she's we call it in Spanish el vocero de AI, vocero de IA, perdón, and that means AI champion, right? And she shared a similar story, right? I mean, for a different approach, right? But similar challenges, right? That they are dealing with, and as you said, people not using even sometimes the tools that should be used into, and it's really interesting to see now from a different perspective, right? And I will say that probably at the very beginning it will be quite difficult for me to take one template in that prompt from the prompt library, because you see it a lot of lines and you are trying to think, you are trying to put yourself in the head of the person who built that template, and probably you say, oh my god, it's quite complex, I cannot, how can I reuse it? I can copy paste it in the prompt and then what? No, I get a lot of information and say, oh, this is what I didn't expect to be. So that is another challenge that she was telling me that sometimes they were dealing with.
All right. So, right. You see, we are talking about managerial skills. And also, what I told you, that from my point of view, good project managers, good line managers are by default well equipped to interact with AI, but not all line managers or project managers are yet good. And some time ago, I attended one webinar, and they shared some statements. I can't recall from where, but there were 3 points about how AI would influence, impact the lives of managers. And they say, number one, of course, AI will augment the capabilities, no doubt. Number two, it will then amplify management deficiencies. So if you have leadership deficiencies, if you don't know how to lead your teams, if you don't know how to delegate, when you use AI, that will be just amplified. And the third thing they said was that would require even more emotional intelligence from you as a leader. Because AI is not, well, now the latest models are trained on some emotional intelligence. Of course, AI is getting better and better in that, but it cannot substitute us humans in that. And when you work with AI, of course, AI could debias quite many things because it doesn't have our human biases. But when you are reusing the outputs of AI with your teams, you have to really be careful how humans would react to that.
Yeah, because you are homogenizing, because that probably brings another risk, right? That you have those templates, and maybe the AI is homogenizing the how to say the thinking of all the people thinking the same way, instead of creating the variety of different perspectives. So it's quite of upsides and downsides.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the insights, Igor. So let's get a little bit more practical. And a senior PM finishes after we finish this episode, right? And the next day, after our colleague watch these episodes and they say, okay, I want to reuse this new approach, right? Monday morning, my first day at work, and wants to apply your framework to real situation. So walk us through how he should actually use these bricks, just as getting started.
Well, start with this think first, prompt second. Articulate what you want to use AI for. What do you want to get out of that? Once you have done that thinking process, AI becomes your team member. And then you know what to do with the team member. You say, well, that's the element of scope. That's the task that I will give to you, dear colleague. So I want you to do this. And that's the information that you need to accomplish the task. And that's what I want to get from that. And by the way, when you are done with your task, come back to me and we will do some verification of your output. Just follow that.
Awesome. So we are almost at the end of this episode, and we have learned a lot much from you, Igor, and a lot of insightful information that we need to digest. And I'm pretty sure that there will be some questions and curiosity from our audience. And I asked you at the beginning of this episode if we are allowed to share this methodology with our colleagues. Please. And let them start exploring it. So if you allow me to do so, I'll share that the link in the post so that they can download it from the description of this video. And if they have questions and they have if they want to reach out to you, Igor, where can they reach out to you?
Well, LinkedIn, they could. Okay. I think you could get my.
Okay.
Yes.
I put your LinkedIn profile in the description of the video, so they can connect you on LinkedIn and send you a message about it.
Yes,
okay. Please. And the other thing I want to ask Igor, what will be your advice for your final talks for this episode, and any advice to our colleagues, leaders, and people who are on this journey?
Well, let me think about that. Elaborating on what I see in the community of project managers, I would say jump into this cold water if you haven't yet, or if you have already jumped, just try swimming. So my advice is experiment. Do whatever you can with AI, because AI is changing our world substantially, big time. Our future is with AI. We cannot avoid that. And you have a choice, whether you get yourself into the collaboration mode with AI, or you would gradually be kind of falling back. And I understand how busy project managers are. I have been project manager myself, but try to find some time to improve your interaction, to improve collaboration. Just think of AI as a new colleague of yours, a new member of the team, and a very knowledgeable one, very capable, but you also have to learn how to delegate to that colleague. So that's my advice to fellow project managers.
Thank you. Igor, this has been one of the most useful and insightful conversations I have had on this show. And you did not just teach us a framework, you also gave us a mindset. Stop treating AI like a tool, onboard AI like a brilliant colleague who knows nothing about your world. Use only bricks that you need. Think first, plan second, reflect, and refine. Please, everyone, subscribe to Inteligencia Colectiva and drop your comments, suggestions about this episode, in the description of this episode. Thank you very much and see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.